There we go.
Okay, so welcome. I'm going to get us started. So today's program is called Creating a Welcome Module for Your Spring Courses, right? Which you might think that like then we're kind of exclusively living in the space of Blackboard, but the theory and the concepts that we're going to be talking about today really are applicable to whether you're teaching in the classroom, right, or fully online. But you will kind of notice a theme that we really believe that like there are a lot of tools in Blackboard that we'll be talking about that even if you're teaching in the live classroom can be very beneficial to um, to really creating kind of a welcoming atmosphere for students. Um, so welcoming students. So many faculty will look at the syllabus, right, as kind of like the way to kick off the semester. And that really does make a lot of sense. And everybody takes a different approach to a syllabus, but the research actually does support that a lot of people will really treat the syllabus as a contract with students, when in fact it's not, right? It really is supposed to be kind of a roadmap or a guide. And so a lot of times, faculty will review the information right on a syllabus, which is important, um, but not necessarily think about how it's like really setting the tone of the classroom. And so today we're going to be really focused on like theory driving the practice of welcoming students, right? And so we'll be talking about not only is that like through a syllabus, right, but welcome modules, right? Welcome messaging. And we'll also be talking about different tools and strategies. To maximize getting students ready to learn. There's a book, it's called What the Best College Teachers Do, and it's from 2004, but it's a pretty interesting book. Just, like that really looked at like a lot of pedagogy that really inspires students for learning. So the next slide. So setting the tone of the classroom, in thinking about creating a positive learning environment, the right tone really can build trust from the get-go. And we'll talk about some of that tone, right? But it can also create a safe space and cultivate connections from the beginning, right? So we're kind of used to saying like first impressions, right, are important, and they really are in the classroom as well, right? There's research to support that students will make a decision on that first day and that first interaction with the student as to whether that's a course they're going to keep or not, right? And students will also be more motivated to participate in positive learning environment and feel more empowered to overcome obstacles based on that messaging, right? And so we'll get a little bit more into some strategies for that. Next slide. So that tone, right, and that, using the right language and communicating particular themes not only sets a positive tone for learning in the classroom, but it begins to foster a sense of belongingness. By kind of really encouraging to students that we're all in this together, and that there's peer support and there's learning from each other as well as learning through the interactions with the teacher. Um, and ultimately, right, establishing this sense of belongingness within the classroom, right, has this even greater effect when faculty within programs tend to do that, right? It ultimately is building, a really powerful implicit curriculum for the program as well. So shifting into some theory that we're drawing upon with the different suggestions we'll make throughout this presentation. First is the growth mindset. What's been really great is in like the more recent years, growth mindset has become more and more integrated into K-12 education. But I think sometimes we tend to kind of put that aside in higher ed, right? We sort of think like, oh, okay, maybe students have learned that a little bit, or maybe this is something that like you don't necessarily think about it all. But the growth mindset really takes all the research looking at like behaviors can change over time, personality can change over time, right? The ability to be more reflective can change over time, right? So these are a lot of psychological concepts, right? But if we're really um, setting that tone in the classroom that like this is a time to learn and grow, right? And as we give some examples about um, submitting assignments and feedback, we'll be able to look at this a little bit more closely. But the idea is we want to think about what are we putting in our syllabus? How are we messaging? How are we organizing our assignments in ways that are promoting a growth mindset? Um, and the feedback process.
Jennifer, I just want to jump in here for a minute because
Yes, of course.
one of the things that I've started doing is actually teaching my students about growth mindset. So I have a section on growth mindset in my welcome module that helps to explain to them that they shouldn't get upset if they don't do well on an assignment, that they're going to have an opportunity to revise or to improve or to do better on the next assignment, so that they understand growth mindset. So it's not just that I understand it, but I actually work really hard to get my students to understand growth mindset because we
Mhm.
know that students who have a growth mindset will do better in our classes.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And just kind of building upon that, right? That ability versus effort, right? And so sometimes like ability could be a little bit low, but the effort is really high, right? And really kind of rewarding both and encouraging both, right? Um, so
That
motivation is another theory that we're utilizing in our presentation. And so basically, when you think about motivation, having choice, right? Having some previous success, right? And feeling connected to what you're doing, um, are kind of ways to, simplify, right? Motivation theory, right? There's many diagrams, right? But when we're talking about it here, and so that we'll give some examples, right? But having some choice in assignments, right? Having having uh, assignments that might be low stakes assignments, right? Kind of help to build competence, and again, kind of just feeling connected to the material, which we'll talk a little bit about more, but making it real to the students, like why, what is its real world applicability, right? And drawing upon students' expertise in their own lives, right, to enhance the experience with the material. Um, and then the third theory that we're using to guide, um, or not necessarily theory, but thinking about the power of belonging, right? So actually, this diagram is ultimately showing that like when you don't have a sense of belonging, right, it ultimately has a negative impact on like cognitive and social tasks, right? So conversely, right, the power of belonging, right, can contribute to that motivation, right, that connectedness, right? So when students feel that they're a part of this learning community, right, they're going to be motivated, right, on days that they're tired, right, or on days that like an obstacle, like a smaller obstacle has come in the way, right? Well, they might work a little harder to be motivated to overcome that obstacle, right? Because there's a sense of like ownership, a sense of belonging to that learning community.
I think this is me. So what we recommend is that to increase that sense of belonging and that sense of connection, part of that self-determination theory and motivation is the connection to other people in the class and the connection, of course, to you as the instructor. So we recommend that you send a welcome email. Students have access to your Blackboard shell 2 weeks before the start date of the class. You can send them a message through Blackboard, and all you have to do, this is either a message or an announcement. They both work the same way. I tend to use announcements when I send it to everybody. But there's a little box here that says send an email copy to recipients, and they'll immediately get this to whatever email they have registered with. And you can send that out 2 weeks ahead of time, even if your class is closed. So you don't have to open up your course to be able to send this. You can send this even if you're not ready to have students participating in the class yet. Just to let them know you're looking forward to it, what the class might be about. And perhaps if you've done a welcome module, you could direct them to that welcome module. And we'll give you an example of that in a little while. So let's talk about creating your syllabus. We've talked about this before in some of our other workshops, but I think it's worth going over it again. In the syllabus, it's important, and not just the syllabus, but let's say the first look at Blackboard. When they open Blackboard, they're going to explore there to see what this class is about and what am I required to do. It's very important to have rubrics. And the rubrics guide students in what you are looking for. It also helps you to be a little bit more objective when you're grading because you're using the same point scale and the same criteria for each paper. And Blackboard has this new wonderful feature that is AI that creates the rubrics for you. So you can, when you create an assignment, uh, go to the settings and then scroll down until you see use grading rubric. And then when you click on add grading rubric, you're going to get two choices. You can create your own, and it's got it still guides you, um, or you can generate it, and it will initially generate a rubric just based on the description that you've put in of your assignment. So make sure you've put in the instructions for your assignment first, and then it will generate a rubric based on your instructions. If you don't like it the first time, just click continue, and then it will give you a chance to put in your actual outcomes or the criteria that you want it to use, and click generate again, and it will generate it more specifically. Or you can go to the next screen and you can actually edit it. You can take out rows or columns or change some of the wording in it. But it makes creating rubrics quick and easy. The other thing that I found that I'm doing now is showing my students how to use Blackboard. In our program, we get a lot, our undergraduates come from Hudson County Community College. A lot of them come from Hudson, and they use Canvas. So this semester, I found that a lot of the students were confused right in the very beginning on how to use Blackboard. So there's a couple of things that we've got here for you um, on the resources page. I have a link to a video that somebody else created on how to use Blackboard, but you can also do it yourself if you're a little bit more techie. Um, I also have the instructions for how to do a screen capture using Panopto. And if you hold on, I'm gonna click out of here so that I can show you that. So if you're using Panopto to record your screen, you're first going to go to your content page for the course and click over on the right-hand side. There's books and tools. When you click on books and tools, then you're going to have Panopto videos as the option. And you can click on create a video. You can either download the Panopto software to your computer, or you don't even have to do that. You can capture it in the browser. Now, this works best when you have two screens. So you just move Panopto to another screen, and then the Capture app, just it has in the upper right-hand corner, screens and apps. Click on screens and apps. It'll ask you to which screen you want to record, or which app you want to record. And then you can just hit record and do whatever you want to do with a voiceover on the screen. So you can say, here's the content tab. Click on the content tab and you'll see the weeks of our course. Each week I have listed the information and the assignments, and you can click on here and you can show them how to do that in your actual course. And then you can name the video and manage access to it, with the sharing features, and then post it to your course. The other thing that is super helpful on Blackboard is using it to show the students' cumulative grades. And the way you do this is to add all of the assignments in first. So you have to have all your assignments there, and then go to your gradebook settings. That's that little wheel icon in the upper right-hand corner. And then scroll down to overall grade and click on set up overall grade. You'll get a screen that looks like this. And you have a few choices here. You can just assign points to each of your different assignments, or you can weight them so that one assignment is 25% of the grade, another assignment is 5%, whatever you want. The advanced category is just more choices there. And then for each of these are the assignments that I've put in the course already. And I've done this course as weighted. So you can see my different weightings over here. Some of them are 10%, some of them are 30%. The You can play around with locking and unlocking them and linking them. You can put things in categories. It's actually very, very robust, but you can make it more simple by just uh, unlocking and unclicking the links. The That purple circle with the line through it is to delete an assignment there. So let's talk a little bit about communicating the policy on deadlines. And we have another poll for you. Shelby, you want to start our poll? I'm going to stop sharing for a minute while we do our poll. And we can also take some time for questions or comments before we go on. Hmm. We've got 76% of the folks that have shared this so far. Got a few more. So this is very interesting, actually. Uh, uh, it's a very small percentage, 13%, that sets clear deadlines and sticks to them. 54% of us pretend to be strict. We want to be strict, but we accept late work. Um, I got to be honest, this was Chris Schomburg's. I'm happy when students submit late, so I have more time to grade papers. 36% of you let students know from the beginning that you're flexible, and 8% depends on my mood. We also joked a little bit about students that we think are more worthy of extended deadlines. And we always have our personal reactions to students. I think it's more interesting to just be honest about our reactions to students. But here's our data. So let me go back. Any questions, any comments so far? I'm going to talk a little bit more about communicating the policy on deadlines. Okay, let me um
I'm holding my that's been a challenge. I'm new to the university, and that's been a challenge for me. That and maybe this isn't the right forum to bring it up, but it seems that there's a culture with the students that it's okay to hand things in late, and it's something that, coming from the business world, I struggle with. Um, it's a balance between being empathetic, but again, it's a culture with a lot of students that they don't do work the first 10 weeks of the semester, and then they come back to you and say, okay, I'm ready to work now.
yeah.
And I just get the feeling that it's they've gotten the messaging prior to this that it's okay to do that. And again, I've been struggling with that as a new professor here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Um let me go back to my slides for a minute. This is what I have in my syllabus. What if I can't make an assignment's due date? Life happens. Deadlines and due dates are part of professional life because I am in a professional preparation program. but sometimes life gets in the way. Please email me if you need an extension and we will set up a new due date. And I think this goes along with a few other behaviors that you have to have. The first is a relationship with the students so that they feel comfortable coming to you and that they know how to contact you, that you're accessible to them. Because life does happen. I mean, how many of us have missed a deadline or had trouble getting something done? We get sick, our kids get sick. I've had students tell me that their computer just died and they're working really hard to get a new computer quickly. Sometimes I think there is a culture in which they believe that deadlines don't matter. I have had students try to hand in everything at the end of the semester. Um, so the other piece that I think goes along with this is contacting students when they have not handed something in. So especially right in the beginning, when I do my first assignment and I try to have something due very quickly, like within the first 2 or 3 weeks, something that's fairly easy that they can feel successful on. Remember our motivation piece? That part of motivation is feeling competent. If we don't believe we're going to be successful on something, we don't try. So students who are not handing work in, many times it's not because they're lazy, it's because they're terrified or they're anxious, and that can lead to being kind of frozen and not be able to do it. You miss the first deadline and you freak out. Oh my gosh, I missed it. I'm embarrassed. I really wanted to do well in this class, and I don't see any way to recover. So I want to throw my students a lifeline. So after that first assignment, if they've missed it, I get in touch with them and I say to them, "Hey, I noticed you missed, the blah 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 assignment. Do you need any help? Is there anything you're confused about or what's going on? I hope everything's okay." I might do that twice. Sometimes for students I know, I might do it 3 times and then I personally stop because I just don't have enough bandwidth to keep doing that. But anyway, I think the deadline policy goes along with our communicating to students and not letting them get to the end of the semester. Sometimes I will also reach out to students who've missed a lot by mid-semester and say, I think it might be better for you to withdraw from this class, that you're not going to be able to pass the course because you haven't handed anything in yet. And here's the link for how to withdraw. And sometimes that gets students on board. This might be an important enough topic that I'm going to stop for a minute and see if anybody else wants to share. Or any of my team wants to share. Either
Yeah.
way.
So I'm going to jump in if that's okay. Um, Going back to what Muriel was saying, right? Like in the beginning, when you establish that relationship and safe space, you really set up the stage to be able to communicate like more challenging or difficult messages to students, right? Like many times, like I've been able to give feedback to students about what this might mean in like a professional setting or how like what another expectation might be even if we're working a solution right now, right? And so that growth opportunity or you're still learning from it. Like I definitely never just ignore what's late. And there's a little difference between like somebody who's hands in everything on time and it's like a one-off assignment, right? But like for those more challenging students, I think there's always that like growth opportunity when you have the relationship there.
Since I
If I could
have,
jump in,
oh
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Dr. Rand. My name is Jose Jimenez. I know I look like someone else that some of you are probably going, oh, wait, what's with the beard? No. That's not him. I'm his brother. No. So real quick, like Eugene, I am new to the university this semester, and it's been interesting because all of a sudden I'm facing a lot of what he has talked about. But one of the things that I feel has been working is that the moment something is due, I'm immediately sending out emails. I don't care if it's 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, a day late, too late. I'm sending out emails. Hey, is everything okay? How's it going? And for the most part, I've been very fortunate where out of all my students, I only have one that I've had to continue emailing him. but we are getting work in, we are getting things done. And again, it's that open communication that I think that Jennifer also mentioned as well. It's really important because if you don't have that, they might feel like, well, I'm just not going to do it, or I'll take the F. But this way, at least they're successful. They feel that sense of belonging, which was addressed in the presentation earlier. And I really think, again, it's just that consistent communication, because if they feel that you're at least on top of them, not that we all have time for that either as
Mm,
professionals, but we do want to make sure, like, hey, I noticed you didn't hand this in.
yes.
Hey, I noticed that your post is lacking some additional details. Please go back in and work on it.
Yes.
So that has been very beneficial for me as a first timer here. Just wanted
Yes.
to share.
I agree with all of that. And we have to let them know that we care and that what matters. The one thing that I've learned after many, many years of teaching is that if we tell ourselves that a student can't, instead of a student won't, we are going to respond in a more caring, humane way and probably a more effective way. So when I say to myself, my students won't hand in the assignments, they don't care, I get angry, I get frustrated, I tend to want to retaliate. Whereas if I say something's getting in the way and my students can't hand in their assignments, then I probe for what is that something? What is going on? What was I not clear? Was my assignment too hard? Do they have too much going on in their life? Uh, I have rarely actually found a student who doesn't care. I think what happens is that they care about other things in their lives more than they care about their classes. And sometimes that's the right thing to care about. If my mom were dying of cancer, I'm going to be in the hospital. I'm not handing in my assignment. So I think that there's legitimate reasons why students don't hand in their work. And we're never going to know, right? I mean, sometimes we do, but most of the time we never know why our students are not handing in work. So I just find that it's always better to assume that our student can't. And then we can act as teachers, because if they can't, then we can act as a teacher. If they won't, then we have to be like, I don't know what, the taskmaster. And I'd rather be a teacher than a policeman. So that's why I'm here. Anyway, let me talk about one other thing that goes along with this. I'm going to go back to my slides. That it is also helpful to start with ungraded assignments and knowledge checks to kind of get students used to participating and handing things in. You have a number of options here. First of all, you can create an assignment and don't include it in the course grades. Remember, I was showing you those course grades and how you can weight these different assignments. You can put it in there for 0% weight or for 0 points. You can also set the point value to 0 for the grading settings itself. And I also want to remind you that you can do knowledge checks in a content page. This is not an assignment. This is your content page. So when you put a page in, it comes up with all of these different things that you can add to it. One of which is a knowledge check, and it's a quick little multiple choice question. It's only multiple choice, and it's not graded, but it gets students to be able to participate. The other thing that I found gets better participation is to make it clear that students can revise and resubmit their work. I want to go back to that motivation diagram again. One piece of the motivation is competency, right? So if we're afraid that we're not good enough, and many of our students are afraid that they're not good enough, trust me on this, they are afraid they are not going to be able to do well. Allowing them to know ahead of time that you can revise and resubmit work. I noticed somebody in the chat said that they allow this only if they hand it in on time. That's a possibility. I would have to play around with that to see whether that works or not. I certainly do say on my final piece that if you want to be able to revise and resubmit, you have to submit it earlier. But this allows them to feel safe to make a mistake and learn from it. It improves the clarity and accuracy in revision and resubmitting process. They have stronger arguments and a more polished final product. It enhances their critical skills, and it develops their ability to accept and apply feedback. Because even though we want to mimic or model the professional world. The reality is they're not professionals yet. That's why they're sitting in our courses. It results in higher quality work and increased credibility and a greater understanding of the material. In the end, that's what really matters, right? Is that they've understood the material and that they can either do or know what we want them to do or know. So it actually holds students to a higher level of quality. I have found this semester that in one of my courses, at least half of the students on every assignment, I ask them to revise and resubmit. And I feel good about it because I want to push them. I don't want to give them the opportunity to just hand in something kind of, halfway okay. I want to say you can do better than this and give them the opportunity to do that. And I find a remarkable compliance with the resubmitting. Like virtually everybody revises and resubmits. And many of them thank me profusely for the opportunity to be able to do that. Okay, I think I'm turning this over to Dana now.
Great. Thank you. So all great points to piggyback on. I wanted to add a little something too about the syllabus. Sometimes we notice that there are students who have read it and are going through their assignments and they're meeting things with the attention that they need to, but others who just dive right into the content. I think especially when we have the online component of Blackboard, it's incredibly helpful, but students attack it at different ways than I think we do. And when you design your course and your syllabus, and you're also designing your online space for your classroom, sometimes what is logical to us and what we think, we try to design a flow to guide them through because we know what's important here and what they should be doing first. And that should be clearly there's dates and this is numbered and it makes sense to us. And once they've seen the syllabus, these things will also fall into place. But some students are coming in from different positions in their learning journey. Some of them have different types of divergence and neurodivergence and whatnot. And I think many of us sometimes we have people who are the manual readers where you'll give them like the Lego set and they'll open up the manual book and they'll go step by step. I need to take this piece and put it with this piece. Okay, what's the second box? Now this one goes to there. Now I add the little guy. Now I put the tree, all these things, and it all makes sense. And then you have other kids who are kind of like me who are like, this is great. Look at all these colors. I'm going to organize them the way I want. I'm going to build whatever I need to. This looks like the box in the picture. Sure, let me take a stab at it. And there's probably a million other ways that people approach what they have to do. But knowing that we've set up the course a specific way that's logical to us doesn't always meet the needs of everybody and how they're going to dive in. Some people take the ladder into the pool, some people do the cannonball. It just depends on what is best for them. And so some I've noticed with their cannonball approach may completely skip the syllabus or only refer to it occasionally as they need it. And that becomes apparent maybe by week like 10 or 11. And so much of the semester has gone by and so many opportunities for them to have more detail, for them to have better outcomes with their grades and their discussions and just have more connection even with some of the other students. But they've missed all that time because they've chosen to skip or maybe just spot check on the syllabus. So there are some things you can do to kind of ground that in your approach. There are some ways you can do syllabi activities or a syllabus activity to help them encourage them to read that syllabus upfront and go through it, no matter how painful that might be if somebody's starting. One other scenario too, which I'm sure we're all very well aware, sometimes students will join classes late. And when they come into a class late, they are so focused on getting to the content and the assignments and just let me catch up on everything I've missed, that they do miss a lot of those details. So, if they had more time or circumstances were different, they may have read everything, but instead they're doing what's best to try to meet the deadlines that they know that they're responsible for. So ways we can do that include, this is a great article that gives you some information about it. It is in our digital swag, which we'll be sharing with you as well. But in the meantime, I just highlighted some areas that I thought were really cool. You can do a formal exit ticket where it says, okay, I've, click the box if you formally acknowledge that you've read the syllabus. And it could be as simple as that. There are different subjects. Everyone teaches differently. That might be something that's specific or all your students might have time for, that that they've acknowledged it and they're giving you formal consent, like, yep, I've done it, click the box, move on. If you, depending on the age level and topic, you might want to work it in different ways so that that they've, other than just checking the box, maybe there's something else that they can express in their knowledge for their syllabus. the one that you have for your class. So in this case, you might want to consider reflection or comparison to other courses. So having an assignment early on that checks knowledge or provides just a formal grade if there's something small, like a very small percentage of the overall, that has them kind of do a personal SWOT analysis. I've read the reflection, or I've read the syllabus. I've reflected on how this one might be different than other ones I've had in other classes. What are my personal strengths and weaknesses on this? What's an opportunity for growth? What threatens my security, my success? It could be a variety of things, but having them kind of go through that reflection process and share that helps a lot. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out assignment. It doesn't have to be a 5-page paper. Sometimes when we think of this type of an activity, it feels like, all right, well, now I have to grade something else. You can just put a 4-cube box and have somebody reflect on different things and write a sentence in each box about how the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that's it. And you just look over it, and that helps give us understanding and information about the students we're working with. So it kind of gives you up insight, and it also allows them to learn more about your expectations. Pre-reading and goal setting assignment could be great too. As they're going through the syllabus, what are some goals? What are some things that they want to do better for themselves or learn and through the course of the entire semester? There could be different goals based on some of the modules that you're working on, different weeks that you have different materials, some stuff that maybe they're not strong on and they want to go back and fortify. Or, well, once I've taken this course, now I know how to move that forward. I'd love to use these skills in an applied manner in another way. So that's, I think, something that can be very helpful. I like the scavenger hunt as well. You could put a Google form together or a Qualtrics and put important like questions that make them go through and read different aspects of the syllabus itself. That takes a little more work, but when you have your syllabus already set, you can put together some questions. It's like an open book quiz. It's not about grading, but it's more about, okay, when are deadlines? What is my policy on resubmissions? What do we do about, some different the books that you need to order, or in this case we have them because we have Bibliu, but these are some different things too that can be that are available to them, and that will help a lot. So more of like an open book guided reference as they're reading, and syllabus elements integrated into different posts and videos. Sometimes it's the first maybe it's a discussion post and you want that to be your first response so everyone can share what their thoughts and feelings are about this related to some of these other areas. Or you can also do something too where they're posting a video. That might be easy, where I want to hear 2 minutes from each person about what you thought was interesting, a goal that you're setting, something that you're nervous about or not clear about, something related to the course that's also based on their relationship to the syllabus. So it doesn't have to be a long, drawn out thing where you're grading more work. We know that time is limited, but this is something that will open up those conversations and could help. So on our next slide, the one thing I like to look at also is when students are interacting with Blackboard information, again, they might skip your syllabus to jump right into the content. In a lot of times when I'm finding that when I'm grading work, students are going to their grade book and they're looking at their roster of grades, one after the other for each assignment, what's been graded, what hasn't been, and they miss the opportunity. I give a lot of detailed feedback so that they can then do better on the next assignment. But when I'm seeing assignment 2, assignment 3, and time goes by and they're making a lot of the same mistakes, if there's little improvement, I'm wondering if they're even seeing what I'm writing. And then what's the point of writing everything if they're just looking at the number grade? I don't think students are willfully just saying, oh, I don't really care about any of the feedback. I truly think they want it, but they just might not be aware of where to find it. So, of course, it's hard to see from the student view unless you go and take one of your own assignments. So these are clearly from the teacher view, but remind them and take time to express that seeing your grade is great. Go into the assignment. Inside the paper, I'm leaving comments, as you can see down here at the bottom of the screen, like different things that if I see that something could be a little bit better, a little something to help them with their structure, especially with proofreading and things like that, it's easy to point things out. I've had students who've maybe written things that are not their best writing, or maybe something that they haven't proofread from ChatGPT. And that's when the comments are especially helpful because I could itemize specific areas where it's categorically incorrect, or something that was a hallucination, or just a whole bunch of bullet points and colons that make no sense. So I can put that through, and instead of accusing the student, I can say, this isn't your best writing. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to convey here. And they'll go back and read that exact passage, and then we'll have a conversation like, oh yeah, okay, I didn't do great on that. Okay, so how do we fix this? It's better, it's an easier conversation, and if they see my comments throughout the paper, it makes a big difference. Also, in the overall feedback, once I've assigned the grade at the top, I always like to add some sort of comment. So in this case, it's just a quick one. The student did a great job. I wanted to make sure that they paid attention to these little areas, see my comments inside. Sometimes I give a lot more depending on what that assignment needed. So if they're not looking at what's there, they're missing a great opportunity to go back and refine and participate in that growth mindset process. So next slide, please.
Before we go to the next slide, I
Oh,
just
sure.
wanted to share that I just discovered last week. It's so funny because, I've been using Blackboard for a million years. I just discovered last week that when you go to your grade book and look at each individual student, it tells you whether they've opened the assignment that you graded or not.
Yes.
So you can actually go in there and see. And I was shocked. Most of my students are not opening these assignments. So they're not getting the feedback. So now I've been prompting them during class, like, all right, sometimes I'll say, first 5 minutes of class, I want you to get on your phone right now and open up the assignments and look at my feedback. Or if
Right.
I'm online, I'll say, we're going to pause for a couple of minutes. Open up your Blackboard, go to your assignments, and look at what I've shared with you. I just couldn't believe how few of them had opened up their assignments.
Yeah, very much so. It's a really great point. Sometimes it's a little disheartening too. If I go through a certain point and I'm like, oh man, really? But it's a great thing to bake in time if you're in a synchronous setting, bake in that time so that you bring it to their attention. And if you're asynchronous, it's a little different, but it just takes 2 seconds if you want to send a quick video or even just an email reminder, just letting them know gradebook is great. It's a good quick reference, but please make sure you look at the detail after everyone because it will improve their grade over time. Most students are not paying money to go to university just to get through and do status quo. They do want to grow, and helping them find ways really makes a difference. I've showed this in other presentations I've done, the AI Academic Integrity AI Assessment Scale. A lot of questions come up about AI, as I even referenced in the last slide, and how to work with that. And this is a newer framework that I find really, really helpful. It's also in your digital swag you'll get at the end, so you don't have to worry about. You can even just type in AI assessment scale, it pops up. And there's a team from Australia who've established this and have come up with a bunch of they've have some publications on it as well, so you could read further into the detail. But simply speaking, this one I love. It's a great assessment that you could build into your syllabus. You can assign do your assignments as you like, but instead of just having that no man's land of are they going to use generative AI ethically? Are they going to come up with their own information? You can in some cases you want them to, but in some cases you don't. In some cases you want them to find creative ways to broaden what they're doing, but the content might have to be a specified way of going about it. It might be proprietary to the major or to the particular subject that they're trying to master, or it might just be something that you could it would be good to have that as a planning tool. So I like each one of these. It's different levels of AI. In some cases, you're using it more, but in some cases, not so much. When you read through them and you have some time, I like this because it starts out with no AI. So if I put something up where I want a personal reflection, I'm going to say this is a level 1 on the AI assessment scale. So my expectation here is that you're not using it, that you're generating your own ideas from your own brain and putting it out and doing your own work. You can use it for, if I want them to generate that information, but it's okay for proofreading or something afterwards, I'll put it into another aspect of the policy. I might say that, okay, this assessment right now is a level 2 planning assessment. So you can use AI for planning, idea development, research, any sort of prompting that you need to come up with collaborative ideas, and you're using generative AI in that means. You still have to cite that you've used it. You still have to show me that these are your ideas. You're not copying pasting, but you can come up with ideas. And I noticed that because it starts out with absolutely none, it goes through different ways you can use it. It gives them solutions. It shows them what ethical could look like, showing them how to cite it, and it puts the expectations in where it's not just all or nothing. And in that all or nothing space, there's a lot that can go wrong. There's a lot of Students might set out with the best of intentions, but in the end, come up with some great ideas and not really know how to paraphrase it or work that into original. And so they kind of end up, blurring the lines between what they can do, want to do, etc. So there's things to keep in mind with that. AI collaboration. So in this one, for the third level, if it's an assignment that allows level 3 collaboration, you may use AI to assist with specific tasks such as drafting, refining, re-evaluating your work. You must critically evaluate and modify any AI generated content you use. Well, that's different from just using it for prompting and planning. Full AI, you may actually want them to go through and create a presentation where there's a human on the screen that is not them, that has a different voice and is giving a full presentation. And let me tell you, that's not as easy as it sounds because we're used to generative AI in the ChatGPT sense. You put in a prompt and then a bunch of things come up. But there's a lot of planning. If you're doing slides and you're putting things together and you want it to be a presentation, there's a way to do that as well. And there's a lot of details and options to choose from. So, looking through that does take a certain amount of time too. That's its own type of assignment, which might not have place in certain subjects. In educational technology, it does, but I don't want every presentation I ask them to do to be done as a level 4. I might want it to be done as level 2, and then I want to hear your voice as you present the information to show your demonstration. AI exploration 5, it almost feels like this should be the nth level. If full AI is 4, it's not like it progresses all the way. It's just different ways of using them. So it's not necessarily cumulative. But in this case, use AI creatively to solve the task, to co-design or, come up with new approaches with your instructor or with yourself. It doesn't have to be where it's an AI produced something. This is more you're producing something and now you're using AI to add those bells and whistles to make it more effective in whatever arena that you're working in. So this is something that if you're interested in it, I think this helps give a lot of guidelines, and it also allows each of us to stay within our domains. It allows us to keep the ethics policy that we have for ethical work and plagiarism, etc., and then use that based on blend that with our knowledge of what we're teaching, and then allow us to give those guidance guardrails, so to speak, to our students as they complete the work. So if that's something you're interested in, check it out and see if it works for you or what you have. I'd love to hear, feedback on that in time because it's only been released in 2024 and generative AI as we go will continue to need to be reevaluated on how we use it in classes. We can go on to the next slide. Thank you. So promoting a civil learning environment as well. And each of these kind of dovetail from one to the next. You're having discussions in your classroom. You're having conversations with your students. Some of them may have challenges over time. They're going to be working with one another. There's going to be collaborative group work, other types of assignments, emails. There's all these different ways, whether you're synchronous, asynchronous, in person, or online. These types of courses, we're always going to be communicating and collaborating. And setting the tone for your classroom environment is huge. If everyone is respected, if everybody is given the guidelines with which it's acceptable to integrate, to work with one another, that helps a lot because they're going to keep those norms in place as they're trying to communicate. Everyone will feel more respected. Students will have a lot more opportunity, I think, to share and be vulnerable, and that's important too. Sometimes we get into classes and we have some different issues that pop up along the way as we were discussing. It could be a personal thing that gets us, it comes in between us and our deadlines or our best work in some cases. But being able to communicate that with your peers, with your professor is a place that it just doesn't come overnight. It comes with getting to know who we are, setting that tone, and making sure that civil engagement is upheld throughout. So these are some great examples, and Jennifer Pax put together these all together and then added the examples. So I like this a lot. If I were in this, I would be screenshotting this right away to keep this in mind as kind of a bag of tricks on the side. But recognizing and appreciating your students, making sure they feel appreciated for participating in class. It seems like something you shouldn't have to do, but the fact that a lot of students probably aren't getting appreciation for participating in other aspects of their life, I think really blows open it opens the welcome door. Like, this might be a safe place. This is a great opportunity for us to engage and have these sort of discussions. And I feel appreciated. If you feel appreciated, wouldn't you go to work every day a little bit more? That's why we have those like appreciation weeks and little silly things. But these little small things go a very, very long way. Highlighting strengths. I'm glad that you reached out. Oh, I read your paper. This looks. Oh, sorry.
Dana, I'm gonna move us along. We have 8 minutes
Yeah.
left.
Oh my goodness, the time is just flying. This is awesome. So let's go on to the next one. Thank you, Muriel. I appreciate it. Blackboard community resources are fantastic because as you go through and you're having these conversations with your students and finding ways that they need support, you can always go on to the next slide as well. These are different areas in Blackboard, and if you click on those little down arrows, it's going to provide you with a whole list of different things that come up as well. So there'll be counseling resources, tutoring, all different things like that as well. So explore this aspect of Blackboard, and I encourage you to share that with your students so that they can go through and make sure that they are acclimated with this as well. They can self-serve. You can also make recommendations and just put them in the direction when you see that they need different things as well. Next slide. Okay. And just to to add on, when you're in a space where you feel appreciated or you feel somebody else's engagement in or excitement about something, that is infectious. We should be putting that out as professors for our subject matter, for our coursework. I like this a lot, and getting excited about what you're teaching really helps set the tone. You know, there are going to be classes that students don't really get why they're here, or what the why is, and helping them see that and going at it enthusiastically makes those connections that really support educators and students, and not only bridges that connection for communication, but gets them engaged. You're the one that has a lot of the power over how students are going to come to your classes. I come from K to 12 education, and this area in the background, there's a lot of our lesson plans are always based around essential questions. And when you're putting together an entire lesson, what are the questions? What are the things that students should have the answers to? What is the why? Why are they connected to this material? And so thinking about this, why is this course important or interesting? If you're excited about why you're explaining it, they're going to get excited about it. It's going to pique their interest. Why do I need to know this information? Where will I use this? How will I make this more successful for me? And what are aspects of this class that apply to me in real life? What can I really use right now? So those are some things, if you hit them with enthusiasm, oftentimes your students will be a little more engaged as well.
Ooh, I got the small font. I'm sorry about that. It looked better on my screen. But I'm going to describe getting to know the instructor. Now, we all have boundaries and personal space, so use this as your comfort level. But I do like to put things on that are probably, if someone spent a half hour Googling me, they would get most of this stuff. But I put it in a video or when I introduce myself to the course. First is my connection to the course. And this is sort of a Mad Libs primer, and I've used all of these at one point or another. You know, you could say, well, I developed this course. I recently revised it. This topic's been a passion of mine since whenever. Your professional history and relevance to the course. I know a lot of people here come from industry, so I spent 10 years of my career in a related field. I've conducted research on different aspects of this course. So you're kind of investing yourself in the course and explaining more about yourself as a person. I like to always mention, if you have something to flex, your bona fides as a teacher. It's sort of a humble brag, but I think it builds some confidence in the instructors. Like, I've been at NJCU since XYZ. I previously taught at ABC. So I think, you know, you're kind of establishing professional rapport with the students, but you're also building some confidence and building a relationship. Also, I would note it in an introduction. I always do an intro video. You would add, again, to your comfort level, emphasize things that you might have sprinkled throughout the course, but it's in a personal appeal. So accommodations that you would give. Again, this varies by person, but feel free to text me if you have a question. I will look at a paper early and give you feedback. If you're going to be late, please reach out to me and look at the lateness policy. I'm flexible on time. Also, what I think is a nice thing to do is acknowledge, you know, any self-care or your humanity. What a little hobby. Again, someone can see a picture of me gardening. When I'm not teaching, I like to garden. I'm a fan of XYZ, so you know, mentions would be appreciated. I'm a film buff. I like reading nonfiction. Just ways to sort of encourage a personal connection. And I would also, in a personal video or message, reiterate office hours, Zoom schedule, and other ways to connect, and really encourage them. I think you could have, you know, your Zoom link, your Zoom schedule on your syllabus, or you could have, you know, your email, you know, in the syllabus. But I think when people have an invitation and there's some hospitality, when you show some hospitality, I think the communication becomes a little more fluid. Next slide, please. Textbooks and readings. Well, here are a couple of suggestions that I think work pretty well. Um, we all have the Biblio link. I would put that at the top of the homepage in Blackboard. And spell out the titles in your syllabus and make sure they match the Biblio. I've had problems with graduate students, and I think this is my last point. I'll get to it, where they got confused. The way I was referencing a reading wasn't the way it was in the syllabus or the Blackboard shell, so it got a little confusing for them. Make sure your links work. I mean, I definitely think if you recycle a course from one year to another, sometimes links change. So pre-check all your links. And have a little message. Look, if a link is broken, things happen, shift happens. Just send me a message to correct it. Repeat readings in several spots. So it's on my syllabus, it's on my course shells, it's in the assignment module as well. So they have it. Here's what I think is really important. And again, I've had problems with this. Carefully reword titles of readings. So I'm not saying don't use short. You don't have to use the APA citation throughout your work. But, for example, Chapter 2 in Merrill et al., or Chapter 2 in Instructional Design, Chapter 2 in a textbook, if the book is Instructional Design, Art and Science by Don. So students, I think they just sometimes have problems processing. It takes them an extra step. So why not make it as easy as possible? As hospitable as possible for your students, and be concise, or at least anticipate that the shortcuts you use, the textbook, APA formatting, et al., might be a little foreign to them at first. Next slide, please. Here's something I like to do also, is a little no charge extra. I don't know how much, but a welcome banner. So in all my courses, I try to customize the welcome banner. This new version of Blackboard Ultra, you don't get a lot of customization. I think there's a lot of advantages to that. Students get a coherent experience across classes. Accessibility features are highlighted, but you can also customize the banner. You just hit the little edit button in the top right corner. Next link I think is pretty helpful also. When you organize your courses on Blackboard, I know it's extra time and work to match your syllabus with that, especially if you're reusing a syllabus that just goes by weeks, but it's very helpful for students to have the actual weeks of what that week 1 is, so they could jump in at any point. Next slide, please. I think, Muriel, was this you, I think?
This was me. I just wanted to let you know that I created a Sociology of Education online intro module. So there's one on the page with all of our resources, so that I can show you what it's like. I actually video recorded it, giving information about my course. This was a fully online course, my weekly expectations, how to navigate the course. All of this stuff I put into my welcome module. And our one tip is, when you do a welcome module like this, don't use dates, so that you can use it again. If you don't change anything in your course, you could use it again.
And must do for beginning of semester, especially. One suggestion I like to do is have a little pre-start of class. So before the class starts over winter break, I'll put a under construction message, and I might open it just so it's a welcome message, so they know at the right place. Students can access Blackboard 2 weeks before the start of the course. So and then give them the due date, like looking forward to seeing you, Tuesday at January 20th, I believe classes start. See you at noon that day. Come back. Here's the book. You'll get it on Biblio. So just a little welcome message to sort of ease them. There are types of students who are going to just wander in on day 1 and hope the magic happens, and there's some that are thinking about that start of the course already. So you try to accommodate all types of learners. This is especially true if you are importing content from the previous year. Check dates on syllabus that match the dates in course. There's always a disconnect. Check content on syllabus match dates in the course. So the content modules. Check student view for assignments, discussion board, and gradebook, especially with those dates. If you import from one semester to another, you're going to get a lot of remnants, a lot of leftovers, a lot of what's that word? There's a fancy word, palimpsest. I always forget how to pronounce that correctly. But it's when you keep writing over the same piece of paper, the old stuff bleeds through. And check the links work, click away. So those are the sort of checklists for beginning of semester.